Hey there, Board Game Maniacs. Thanks for joining for another episode of Painting with a Maniac. We haven't done a Painting with a Maniac episode in such a long time. I figure we might as well do it. And if you've been following along with the channel for the last Apocalyptic Saturday video that was released, we announced that Brady and I will be doing an RPG adventure using Fallout Wasteland Warfare by Modiphius Entertainment, using the RPG role-playing game. Not the one that they released, the D20 system, but this is the one that is following the book and everything else. You can look it up onto the Modiphius website if you want. And during this painting video, I'm really hoping to not get my big noggin, such as right here you can see, into the camera. But if I do, I apologize. I will try to be aware of that the whole time. And that's it. So we're going to start this off with the painting of Manny. And you can find his character backstory and everything else by watching the previous video for Apocalyptic Saturday. You can see here, this is the Manny figure that I printed off a Hero Forge. So pretty much I went down Hero Forge, designed my own character, and then I just bought the STL file and I printed it since I have a resin printer. You can see here he has some, I still got to do a little bit of cleanup onto it and so on. He is right here, and in the last video he was white, and the reason why he was white because I printed off two of them because I had to get the scale properly. The gray one, the scale was off a little bit as opposed to the white one. My white balance is kind of off a little bit, but I want to keep it like this so you can see the paint going on more clearly. The white may be a little bit over bright right now, but once I start putting the paint on, you're going to see that you'll be able to see the paint pick up onto the miniature a lot better. But anyhow, Hero Forge, that's where I created it. And Manny, I already talked about his stuff into the previous video with Brady, so if you want to find more information about Manny himself, you can do that. You can hear his backstory and everything else. So let's start off with the painting, and primarily I'm going to be using contrast paint by Citadel for this. The first step we're going to do is we are going to actually paint Manny's skin, and we are going to be using Citadel's contrast paint Guilliman Flesh for his skin. Now, I may end up using all contrast paints for this. Hiccups again, of course. But I may not, I don't know. But I'm kind of winging this as we go along for painting this. So the first thing, again, I'm going to do the flesh color, and it's Guilliman's Flesh. So I'll be back. I'm going to shake this up and get it open. We'll start the paint. Here we go. First thing is the flesh. You can't really see the detail because it is blown out white. Like I said, I may color correct just to tone down the white in the post, but we'll see. So I'm going to try to just do it this way and keep my big, giant noggin out of sight. So I'm using a super fine detail brush. Just go over here. It does have a beard and an eye patch that Brady kindly included into his storyline, which was awesome. So this kind of be a little boring to watch, just doing the flesh, because it's the same thing. And my big noggin was in the way again. You can see there. I'm trying to keep it. I'm using my magnifying jewelry glasses to be able to see the paint better. So once this is all done with the flesh, I'll be back and show you where I painted it. But again, it's Guilliman Flesh. Always make sure your brush is always wet, and you just keep working it in, because if you leave your brush get dry when you're applying it again, you're going to start pulling the detail, such as right there, off of the miniature. I'll be back after the flesh is done. There you can see I have the Guilliman Flesh already painted. Got it on his hands and his face and the back of his head. Now, I darkened up the back of his head with it, and also too, as well as if you turn around here, you can see he has an eye patch right there. I painted over the eye patch. I went a little darker here, and the reason why I did that is that I know that this eye patch is going to be black because that's the color I want. So when I color this in, the darker contrast is going to cover the lighter contrast. And you're going to create that shadow, that darker flesh shadow behind his eye patch just slightly. That's why I darkened it there. Now, that's a really important thing about contrast paint that I want to talk about, that from painting with contrast paint, what I've learned, I don't know if anybody else did, but I like to try to go from lightest to darkest with contrast paint. The reason why is because if you paint all the light stuff first and you mess up, when you paint it, if there's going to be a darker color that is going beside it, you can clean it up very easily. As opposed if you went dark first and then you put the lighter contrast over, what happens is that you're not going to get rid of the messy, darker contrast underneath. So just be aware of that. That's kind of like my methodology or my technique when I'm going to be painting contrast. Now the next color we're going to do is I'm going to do his upper clothing with balsamic gray. Now I'm going to do the same thing. This is kind of, it is dark, but it's not that dark. It's a lighter color. So that's what I'm going to do to paint like all of his upper clothes. And then his pants are probably going to be like a black. We'll see, but anyhow, I'm not going to record like all the painting stuff because the painting is the same. I like to talk about the techniques more than just show it. So I'm going to be painting all of his upper stuff aside from his armor and the leather belts and backpack and everything with the balsamic gray. I think it's called balsamic gray. Basilican gray. Yeah, sorry, balsamic gray. I'm thinking of the what you call it? Salad dressing. Anyhow, I'm going to paint that and I'll be back and show you what I did there. This is just a very quick video showing Manny what he looks like before what you see and now after when we're painted. It's not really an official painting with the Maniac. This may probably be released on the Wednesday. I know in the Apocalyptic Saturday video that we did last, Brady and I did say I was going to release this on Apocalyptic Saturday for the next one, but it's more falling under the painting with the Maniac, so it can be released on a Wednesday. I'll decide after everything is done and, you know, it'll reflect it through when I release it. So anyhow, let's continue on. I'm going to paint all the gray, the upper part with gray now. You can see there I painted all of the basilican gray onto him. And what I like to do is when I'm painting it, I'll start in an area that I know it's supposed to be really dark. And I will initially touch there, touch down. So, whoa, I just dropped my paintbrush. So I start like here with the dark and then brush outward so it gets lighter, and that way you can kind of control the flow of the highlight and everything. But again, you're going to do a wash and everything on this, or you can if you want. I plan on but I'm going to be doing a wash onto him anyhow. So I got to pick up my paintbrush. I just dropped it, so, and I need a paintbrush for next one because we're going to paint his hair next, and Wildwood contrast paint is what we're going to be using to paint his hair next. So let's do that. The color that we're going to be using is contrast Wildwood onto his hair and maybe somewhere else, I'm not sure yet, but hopefully I won't get my big noggin in play in like there so that I can paint him so you can see on camera here. So let's see, he's got a beard and that, so trying to be careful. And the way that my head's in the way again, the way that I'm painting this is, again, the most of the paint I want it where it's going to be the darkest, and I push it upward to get onto where it's going to be lighter so you can see like the white highlights going through. So once I'm finished that, I'll be back again because I noticed that my big head is getting in the way. I'll be back. I finished all of the Wildwood on his hair. I also put it on the stock of his gun too as well. And I think that's the only other place that I put it. Everything is looking kind of messy right now, but it will all come together in the end. It's just, you have to, the wash will determine, make it all fill in and be nice and clean and everything too as well. The wash is important. So I'm kind of making him look a little bit on the dirty side, obviously, because it is in a wasteland and he's not going to have access to washing his face and everything a lot, or his clothes for that matter. So just be aware of that. You want to try to get his backstory in your mind before you start painting. So you can see I got that. Now I'm going to paint all the leather, and I'm going to be using, it's a contrast snakebite leather, and all I'm doing is just painting over where all the leather spots are going to be on this. So once I'm done with that, I'll be back because it's kind of boring just to see that. So anyhow, I'll be back. Since we have all this snakebite leather paint, you can see I put it on the boots too as well. This is the first time using this color of contrast paint, and I really, really like the tone of it. So therefore, I just added a little bit more. You can see the straps and around his gun, the leather straps and everything. I made it messy. And again, the reason for making it messy again is because he's in the Wasteland, he's dirty. And I plan on doing a 50-50 mix wash like I usually do over the miniature when I'm done, which will make everything all blend together. So just be aware that he looks kind of messy right now, but in the end, as I said before, he will come about. We're going to switch off of contrast paints just for the time being, and we're going to paint all the metal. Now, I'm going to do like his armor and everything, and I'm going to be using, if I get it in focus there, Iron Breaker. And I got it in my wet palette with a little bit of water onto it, and I'm going to start painting the armor. Like the armor you can see here. Backpack's going to be a different color, obviously. And I'm going to do a little bit of dry brush possibly on the weapon. And his leg armor I'm going to paint. So once I paint all, I'll be back. I'll show you where it is because there's no technical thing for painting this. It's just taking the Iron Breaker and making sure it's got a little bit of water into it just so that you can layer it up and away you go. So I'll do that and I'll be back. Now that the Iron Breaker's on, again, I put it on all where the armor is at. So his shoulder pads and his chest piece. And he's got two like armor padding onto the upper part of his legs. And I also did a little bit of like highlighting onto his weapon. Camera's having a hard time trying to focus. And also too as well, you can see there, I put it onto the can, which is there. I kind of took that off of Marvel Crisis Protocol. There you go. So that is all where I painted the Iron Breaker. The next thing we're doing is we're going to take the Blood Angels Red contrast paint by Citadel. You can see right there. And we are going to paint the upper part of his backpack, which is his sleeping bag with the red. And then after that, we are going to be painting the lower half, which is his back half. His backpack, I should say, with Citadel Militarum Green. So again, Blood Angels Red for the sleeping bag and Militarum Green for his backpack. And once that is done, we'll be back yet again to see our progress. The green is all done, and the red you can see for the backpack is right there. And it's still drying. So what I'm going to do now, this is going to be interesting. I've learned this technique before, and I really like the way it looked. So I'm going to use Black Templar. It's another contrast paint. And I'm going to paint his pants, obviously. But when I'm doing it, I'm also going to go over all of the silver to give it that kind of black metallic look. So the pants are going to be black, and all of the silver, like his shoulder pads, his chest piece, his leg piece, are going to all be coated over with Templar, Black Templar, as well as pants. And you can see I add a little bit of red over the silver. You can see silver's kind of showing through the red from where I did for the can. So that's what I'm going to do for his pants and his armor. I'll be back after that is done because we're getting close to finishing this guy off. I finished with the Black Templar, so the pants, and again, all of where the armor, you can see that the Iron Breaker is still showing through the black. It kind of gives it that metallic look, but I didn't want to have an actual bright metallic look. So this is what I'm going for. Now, the next step that I'm going to do here, I'm not going to record on camera. I'll just be back when I'm doing it too as well. And that is the base. So I'm going to just paint the base with like Draw Stone, which is not contrast paint. It's just a Citadel gray paint, like Draw Stone, I think is the name of it, or Essence Gray, I should say, right there for the rocks. And then I'm going to use like the Wormwood contrast paint for the brown part for the ground too as well. So once that is all done, I'll be back. I'm going to show you how I mix up my wash like I usually do to do both the miniature and the base. And we'll be back and see what that looks like. I finished all of the gray. I did say Essence Gray, but I actually went with Dawnstone Gray instead. And the reason why is because it was a little bit lighter, you can see in the base. Because if I went with the Essence Gray, it was going to be too dark. Because you can see kind of like the tone of the Essence Gray. It's a little too dark, so I went with the lighter one, which is the Dawnstone. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a wash on the entire miniature and the base, but we're doing two different types of effects. The one that we're doing is going to put 10 drops for the miniature, 10 drops of Agrax Earthshade with 10 drops of water, and we get it in our cup like this. We mix it all up like so. You've probably seen this a lot if you've watched Painting with the Maniac episodes previously. And after we are finished with that, we are going to use Nuln oil just to go over the entire base, and it's not going to be diluted. But first off, we're just going to treat the whole miniature with this Agrax Earth Shade and Water mix, just to make sure, you know, that we're getting everything the way that we want it first off. And this will just fill in out all of the little holes. It will help all the blending come into effect for both like the gray and the black and the brown on the boots and everything that we talked about. The only thing I'm going to avoid is the skin itself, because we don't want it to touch the skin. The hands are okay, but I would prefer to keep the tone, I should say, of the skin this color. But everything else, we're just gonna go over with the wash and then non-diluted Nuln oil for the base. And when that's dry, we'll be back, and we may do just a little tiny bit of highlighting. The next step that we're going to do, since the wash is all dry, you can see it's pointed at the base, so on, like that. The next step is we are going to start doing just a little bit of highlighting. I kind of like the level of dirt and grime mixed with a very little bit of highlight on him now. I'm just going to bump him up a bit, but you can certainly stop here if you have this miniature. But obviously this is a custom miniature, but you probably potentially made the exact same miniature for one of your things using Hero Forge. But in either case, the way that I'm doing this, I'd be happy leaving them. But I just want to bump up a little bit of the highlights of that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the Iron Breaker, the same paint that we already used, and we're just going to dry brush on all the metal parts. And after we're done with that, we are going to dry brush with some Ceramite White. I don't got my glasses on right now, so Ceramite White. And after that, I'll be back, and where I'm putting the Ceramite White is pretty much everywhere else except for the metal of the gun and his, you know, his shoulder pads, his leg pads, his chest pad. Everything like that is going to be highlighted in the Iron Breaker, and the rest is going to be highlighted in white. So once I'm done with that, I'll be back. Then, again, I don't have to show you what highlighting is because it's very simple. If I can pause the video. Oh yeah, one more thing. I'm also going to paint black around the rim of the base. If the camera wants to get in focus. There we go. Blacken around the rim of the base too as well. I'm going to do that. The highlighting is almost done, but I kind of stopped because I did go a little further than what I said that I was going to do. And what I did, just to show you, because you can see like there's a little bit darker in the eye for the eye patch and so on. So what I'm doing is I'm selectively going in with the same color that I use for like the Black Templar for the pants, the Basilicum Gray for the top, and so on. Contrast paint, and I'm going around it, and I'm looking like, okay, so there's the boot part here so I'm going to take the color that I've used for his boots, which is the snake bite, and I'm just going over where the two of them meet, where a shadow would probably be, and just freshening up some of the paint like that. So that is one of the extra steps that I'm doing here. So once that is all done, I'll be back and I'll show you, and I'll explain a little bit more in detail. Maybe. If the camera pauses. Yes. Pause, camera. Stop pausing. There you have it, Board Game Maniacs. I'm not going any further with Manny. He could, you know, I could still paint more, bring up more of the highlights, everything. But I like the degree of dirt, the darkness, and everything else onto him. You can see using the different types of contrast paints. And I went underneath, like, his leather part with the snake bite, and I just brought it back out again a little bit with the green and the red as well, and his boots slightly, and I kind of, you can see there, I kind of dry brush a little bit more white onto the base just to kind of bring out all of the garbage and everything that's down. So I hope you'll enjoy this Painting with the Maniac episode where we painted Manny, where Brady and I are getting ready to play the Fallout Wasteland Warfare RPG game by Modifius Entertainment. This has been a build-up for a long time, and Brady and I were like, yeah, it's finally, we're going to do this because we're in lockdown in the COVID right now in Ontario, Canada, and we're like that for 4 weeks, which means that nobody else can come into the house that is not within our family. So therefore, we're going to make ourselves busy and start trying to shoot as much as we can of this campaign for Fallout Wasteland Warfare RPG by Modifius Entertainment. And the camera's is getting blurry and blurry the faster I turn it around here. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Get in focus again. There you go, Manny. You're in your glory and ready to go and destroy some of whatever jumps in front of your way, stopping you from finding your wife and your child, your daughter. So we'll see you on the flip side, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll catch you for Adventure Saturday when we start playing the game. See ya! And remember, be a maniac. We'll see you next time. Bye! Bye! Bye, Manny. Bye, Manny. Manny, say bye. Manny, say bye. Bye, Manny. Anyhow, bye. 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 Hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to keep up to date with Board Game Maniacs, click on the like and subscribe button to be notified when more videos come available. If you want to become an official sponsor of Board Game Maniacs, go to patreon.com/BoardGameManiacs. Or you can go to streamlabs.com/BoardGameManiacs1. That's right, and you can donate to help keep the lights on, keep food in our bellies, and play more games. We'll purchase more games, more equipment to make Board Game Maniacs evolve and get bigger and larger because of you, the viewers. I thank you from the bottom of my toes to the top of my head for all of your support. And until next time, Board Game Maniacs, be a maniac.